and welcome to Inverse Proportion with Cubits Education. In this lecture you will understand what inverse proportion is, use the rule y equals k over x to write inverse proportion equations, and find values in inverse proportion equations. Okay, so first of all then, what is inverse proportion? Now that I can actually say it properly. So, inverse proportion is a relationship between two quantities such that when one of those quantities or numbers increases, the other one decreases in proportion to one another. Okay, so for example, the population of wild goats have been reduced in inverse proportion to that of snakes. So basically, wild goats reduced as the snakes increased, and that's probably because the snakes were biting the goats and trying to eat them. Okay, so let's have a look at a question that you might get in your exam. Y is inversely proportional to x. Complete the values in the table below. So when we're doing inverse proportion, so here we've got some numbers for x, and we need to work out what the values for y are. And then here we need to work out the value for x. So all you need to remember is this equation here, y equals k over x. And the first thing you've got to do is figure out what k is. We know what x and y are because they're telling us one of each value here. So y equals k over x, which means in this case that 5, because it's y, equals k over 8, because 8 is x. So in order to find out what k is, we need to do the opposite of that equation, and we need to multiply 5 and 8 together to get k on its own. The reason for that is because you've got k here and it's being divided by 8. To get k on its own, we do the opposite by timesing by 8. So 5 times 8 is 40, so k must be 40. If k is 40, we know now that we can work out any other values here. So this time we have x is 5, and we need to work out what goes here. And to work out what goes here, we need to use the fact that we know that k is 40. Now, in this case, we've got to work out what y is, but we know that x is 5, and we know that k is 40. 40 divided by 5 is 8. So y must be 8. Okay. Next, we need to work out x being given 35. So we know then that this is y. So y must equal k over x, because that's what we have here. And we know that k is 40. So 35 equals 40 over x. Now to rearrange this equation, we need to get x on its own. But in order to do that, we need to get rid of this division sign, which means we have to multiply 35 by x, giving us 35x equals 40. And then to get rid of 35, we can swap it around and divide by 35. So x equals 40 over 35. Now we can write, so if we put our numbers into our boxes, this one was 8 from here, and then this one here, we can write, we can do 40 divided by 35 on a calculator, which gives us 1.14. But you can leave it as a fraction in its simplest form. So if you cancel it down, it gives you 8 over 7, and you can leave it like that. So another example of a type of question that you might get in your exam is that P is inversely proportional to M. P is 48 when M is 9. Write an equation for P in terms of M. So the first thing we need to do is remember our equation, y equals k over x. And in order to write down our equation, we need to work out what k is. So here they've told us that P is 48 and M is 9. So we're going to write this out. So P equals 48, and I'm going to write that as y. The reason I know that that's y is because it's saying here, write an equation for P, which means P needs to be at the beginning. P equals. So y must be the same value as what P is going to be. So P is 48, which is our y value, and M is 9, which is our, sorry, that's supposed to say x. That's our x value. Okay, so now then we can say that 48, which is y, equals k, which we don't know, divided by x, which is 9. Okay, so in order to work out what k is, we need to do the opposite of this division, which is times. So 48 times 9 is 432. So because k is 432, we're now going to write an equation for P in terms of M, but using this layout. So that must mean that P equals K, which is 432, over M. And now that we've got this equation, we can use that to work out any value for any P or M that we're given. So here it's now asking us to calculate the value of P when M equals 12. Well, we need to use this equation here. So P equals 432 over M, and we know that M is 12. So P must equal 432 divided by 12. And 432 divided by 12 is 36. So P equals 36. So here's another example. Why don't you pause the video and try and have a go at this one yourself? I'll put the equation there just so that you've got it ready. Okay, if you've paused the video and had a go, you'll see that on this one I've underlined R to make sure that you remember that R must be at the beginning of your equation. So it must start with R equals K over T, because T is here. So R is 12, which is our Y value, and T is 0.2, which is our X value. So then we must know that R goes where Y is, K goes where it normally goes, and T, which is where our X is, goes on the bottom. Now we can put our numbers in. So R is 12, and that equals K over 0.2. And as I said before, in order to get this K on its own, we need to get rid of this division by timesing by 0.2. 12 times 0.2 is 2.4. So K must be 2.4. So our equation must be R equals 2.4 over T. And now we can use this to work out this question. If R equals 2.4 over T, then it must be 2.4 over 4, because T is 4. 2.4 divided by 4 is 0.6, so R must be 0.6. So I hope you've understood what inverse proportion is. One increases as the other decreases, and you've also been able to use this rule to write inverse proportion equations. And you can find the values of inverse proportion equations also using this rule. So well done, thank you so much for using Cubit Education, and I will see you next time.